Hey everybody, this is Les and Christy, and this is the Easy Farms Podcast, where we are doing things from the ground up. We're here to help guide your homesteading adventure and hopefully make the journey a little easier. Welcome back to the podcast. We hope y'all had a great week. We've had a really good week here on the homestead. We got a lot of things accomplished. We'll get into that more here in a minute, but Christy's got a question someone has sent in.
Hi, yes, I do. Welcome back. We're just glad to have you with us. Before I ask this question, I just want to let you know that if you have a question for us, please feel free to ask us. You can ask us on our direct message on Instagram or in the comments. Anything like that, feel free. We'd love to answer your question on the air. This is from Michelle from North Carolina. She asked, any tips on homesteading while my husband and I both work a 9-to-5 job? Michelle, this is a very common situation in homesteading. People want to homestead. They want to bring back to home. They want to come home. They want to fill their land with, livestock and chickens and garden and all that because it's such a beautiful thing to do. But it's not always workable in everybody's lifestyle because they do have to carry a 9-to-5 job. And to be honest with you, doing all of that also on the home takes a long time to do. And it's a very busy time. My suggestion, just to be honest, there was a time that our family homesteaded for many, many years, and I stayed home raising the kids, homeschooling them, raising them up. And so therefore we did have the time, and it did consume a lot of our time. And then eventually we incorporated the kids as they got old enough to do their own projects and their own helping out around the property. But there also came a time I went back to work. Once I was done homeschooling them, I wanted to go back to work, and it took a lot of my time. And I'm going to be honest with you, we couldn't do everything we were doing at the time that I was at home. So we had to get rid of a lot of the chickens. We had to get rid of our goats at the time because my husband worked less. He works a full-time job and he owns his own business. And then he would have to come home and take care of everything that once was something we could handle and take off his plate. He would only do the harder things, the bigger projects, things like that I didn't do. And that was a great help because there's always projects on the homestead. So going back to that question, I would start small. If you're working a 9-to-5 job, find out one or two things that works for you. I don't know. You also got to look at where you live. So if you look at a neighborhood, therefore there's going to be neighborhood covenants. You need to find out what's okay if you want chickens. They may say that's okay. So look into that and you can have chickens. That's very doable with the 9-to-5 job.
Yeah, homesteading is not necessarily like Little House on the Prairie where you got this giant farm, you're putting in wheat and you got cows and goats and sheep. You don't have to have a huge process or project for it to be homesteading. You can start small. And we've said this in previous podcasts, like Christy was saying, if you're in a subdivision, homesteading looks different than if you're on 100 acres. Homesteading doesn't mean you got, 50 cows that you're breeding or a bunch of sheep or, 1,000 chickens. Homesteading can be a small process to start, and you can grow it larger over time.
That's right. So if you also live on some land, you may have 100 acres, but if you're working 9-to-5, both of you, that can hinder the time frame that you have to do all the things you want to do. So you have to look at your own time frame. Some of the things that are very doable in homesteading, and I'll go back to this over and over. Homesteading is also just bringing things back to the home. If you want to cook more, try to do more, go into your local farmer or your farmers markets. Thank you. Go into your farmers markets and buying the vegetables there to bring back to the home. You're supporting the local farmer. You're also bringing them back. You can buy a big bushel of tomatoes and you can can them and you can use them throughout the year in tomato sauce and chili and vegetable soups and chilies and spaghetti sauces and things like that. That is a part of bringing it back to the home. If you live in a small subdivision or a 1 acre or 10 acres or more, you can always grow tomatoes. You can always grow a few vegetables. Those things are doable. It's going to consume more of your time in the summer, but you just realize that you have longer days in the summer. When you come home from work, the sun's up longer. You spend a little more time in the garden. You start to pull those weeds. You can look for those tomato worms. Then you can spray the nutrients on it. You can go out there and clip and tend the vines, whatever it may be. That's just something you realize is going to happen when you start planting. And when you start planting, happens to be at a good time of the year. So that works for that. Now, if you want to get chickens, you may want to only get this amount that you want. Make sure, and you can build a small coop, or you can buy them already done and have them delivered and only get the amount that you need to take care of. If you just want some for your family, figure out what that may be, order them, but also keep in mind, collecting the eggs, feeding the chickens is a daily process unless you have a feeding system and a watering system that's set up. But watering and feeding and collecting eggs is a daily process. Cleaning out the coop, that's a weekly process. These are things to think about before you do it. However, has to go in with what kind of time you're willing to spend. And a lot of it is trial and error. You may get out there and build a garden and order too many chickens. And next thing you know, you realize, wow, this is a lot of work. My chickens are having issues, or I am realizing the water is empty again and you're ready to go to bed, or you're so tired from a long day, but that's okay. That'll turn into the beauty of things in homesteading. So just look at what works for you. Start small. The smallest things can be baking your own bread, maybe starting a sourdough bread. I've recently started that, and that's something I never tackled, is sourdough bread. And I feel really good about doing that because I'm bringing that back to home. It's a fermented bread, a gut healing bread. And so those are things I've tried. I just was intimidated to try, even though I baked bread off and on for many, many years. This one kind of intimidated me, but hey, I'm doing it. I'm started to do it, and we'll see how long that lasts. It may last for many years, but so that's the way things are in homesteading. Figure out what to do. If you're 9 to 5, you want fresh eggs, get you some chickens, get you a small chicken house and coop, and go from there. Start maybe your gardens, your vegetables, a few blueberry plants, things like that. And then start cooking a little more from scratch. Those are the small starts.
Yeah. And that's a big point is, you want to start small. Even if you, like Christy said, if you're on 100 acres, that's great. But you still need to start small and grow from that. It's just because like she said, if you get 100 chickens, you're going to get overwhelmed and it's going to get out of control and you're going to get frustrated with it. And you don't want to start a project like this frustrated. It needs to be a good experience. And so that's why we're doing these podcasts, to kind of give people ideas and insight into the things that go on. So for instance, this week, one of the projects we did was expanded some of our fencing, because this past week we added 3 more sheep to our project. Mm-hmm. And two of them are pregnant. Yeah, 2 of them are pregnant. So
3 ewes.
We're expanding the herd, or the flock in this case, to grow it to a higher level of production. The idea is, we can sell sheep to other people that want to start this process, or we can process them for food. That's another part of homesteading, of course. But so we've been working on fences, and we've increased our pasture, and we're going to be increasing it even more in the near future.
Yeah, because one of the reasons we need to not only increase it is we rotationally graze our chickens, and we rotationally graze our sheep and our goats. And by doing that, we need to have more spaces that are paddocks or fencing. And even though we also use some of it with electric fencing and we can move that, we've got to do that because that is very helpful to keeping parasites away, things like that. We can talk more about that in future podcasts. And what did you
funny, you mentioned the goats, and we were talking about, trying to keep things manageable. We are going to be getting rid of the goats. We brought them in for weed control. They're weed eaters and foragers, so they get back in the edge of the fences and they'll eat that all down for you. And they've done a great job on that. But we have decided to transition more to sheep than goats. So we've got some friends that are requiring goats on their property now. And, a few years from now, they may come back if the fences get out of control. But, there's a lot of transitional things that go on in homesteading. You'll find yourself, let's try this idea. You know what? That didn't work out so good. We can change that. We talked about if you were to get 100 chickens and it felt like it's getting out of hand, a laying hen that's currently laying is worth a whole lot more than a baby chick. So you can recoup your money or a lot of it if you decide to move in and out of things that you're trying. So there's advantages to that as well.
We also know that most people don't get 100 chickens. Even if they do have 100 acres, they don't get 100 chickens. But some people do because they start building a clientele of to sell eggs. And in the economy that we're in right now, we know that eggs are very valuable, and people are moving toward and selling eggs and things like that. I've seen a lot of memes out there that are really kind of funny about the price of eggs going up. It's sad, but the memes are, it's beneficial to the homesteader who can sell the eggs. It's very beneficial to them who has the eggs, even for their own home, that they can't go out. They don't have to go out and buy eggs. And that's one of the beauties of homesteading. Yeah.
I mean, we've got a lot of eggs. We're going to be increasing our flock of hens here in the near future. So there'll be more on that. Some other things that have happened on the homestead here. Things happen in life and things really happen on the homestead. We had a situation this week. We lost one of our sheep, and I don't mean by got lost out in the woods. We had a sheep that died, and it wasn't just die. It did die. It was killed. And I won't go into too much detail on that, but it does bring us to today's topic, and that is the beauty and the hardships of homesteading.
Yeah, there's a lot of beauty and hardships to homesteading. And that's a good question in itself is, what can that look like for you? And so just to start out with is some of the hardships of homesteading is, like Les said, we lost one of our sheep this week, and it was due an unnecessary situation where animal got in the pasture and killed one of them. We caught it before, we caught it not in time to lose the sheep, but we did catch it in time before the animal, before she had I'm just going to say a very hard way to go. We did catch that. I know your mind's probably all wondering, but it doesn't, the point is it was very difficult on us to lose her. And one thing about homesteading the hardship of homesteading is when we lose our animals unnecessarily. Some of these animals are very strong pets for us. I know a lot of people who have chickens, and every one of them has a name. And they definitely adore those little chicks and chickens, and they raise them, and they become little pets. They train them to sit on their shoulder, walk around with them. They follow them. Some of them bring them in their houses. Same way with goats. We have Nigerian dwarf goats. They are adorable. They all have names. And if we were going to process those goats, I can tell you right now, I would not be giving them names.
Yeah, don't name your food.
No, we don't do that.
That's rule number one.
And our sheep doesn't have names, and we don't want that, even though they are so cute. They look deserving of a name. But we realize that when you lose one of those animals, when you're not expecting to lose it, and that's not the purpose of that animal, it is very difficult. It's very hard. It's very sad to adjust to. But if you know you're going to lose them, in a sense that we raise meat birds, well, we know that those are here for a purpose, and that is to provide meat for us, chicken meat for us,
Yeah,
a whole chicken.
there's different levels of animals. You've got the animals that produce food, and you have animals that are food. So like your chickens, if you're in a subdivision, you got 5 or 6 chickens, hens running around your backyard, and they're laying eggs in a nesting box, you can name them because, that they're going to be doing that for several years, as opposed to a broiler that you're raising to put in the freezer and in the, oven later. Most people don't raise a cow to put in the freezer in their backyard, but if you were on several acres and you could get a steer and put it out in, your pasture, putting a name on it may not be a good idea. Don't, kind of keep the kids away from naming their food, because when you do have to eventually process it, you don't want a 50-year-old cow walking around your backyard, because it's just, you can't put Bubba on the plate. You've got to kind of separate yourself from that to a degree, because there are, like I said, animals that produce food and there are animals that are food, and that you got to kind of keep those separated in your mind and in your family's mind in order to be able to go through the process. But when you lose an animal to illness, accident, predators, it's really kind of hard, because if you just look at the math of reproduction like that on sheep, typically the first time they lamb, it's 1. And then after that, they throw twins. So if you kept that,
and then some of them throw triplets.
Yeah, if you keep that one sheep for just 5 years, I mean, you're talking a dozen babies plus the babies those babies will eventually have. I mean, it gets exponentially expensive when you lose one, just like it's exponentially profitable when you maintain them. So yeah, to lose one like that, it was really hard, because it wasn't totally over when we got down there. We had to, we were thinking, wow, do we need to, how much intervention do we do? Do we take it to the vet? Do we call the vet? Because vets in the country like that for farm animals, they do make house calls. It's expensive, but they do make house calls.
But she did pass away.
Yeah.
She passed away
During the
quietly, night. And we were thankful. And we were thankful we caught her before she was harmed really bad. But unfortunately, she, I guess, was internally harmed enough that she passed away. And I'm thankful that it happened quickly and fast, because that's not something anybody really wants to see. And with that, along with that, is the fact that if people have 5 or 6, 7, 8 chickens in their backyard for their family, and they do everything they can to take care of them, and they're their pets. And then all of a sudden, here comes a hawk that takes one. And then I was looking at somebody's Instagram post the other day, and they live in an area where their whole chicken run is pretty large, but they have it all netted at the top, so no birds can get in there. They thought they had it everything secure all the way around it, and then they came out and there was a dead chicken, and then next day there was one missing. And they were thinking, oh my goodness, I've done so much. But a predator got in. It may have been a raccoon is more than likely, got in and killed that chicken, and then maybe took one away. And they were just really upset with that, because they thought they had everything secure. And going into homesteading, these are things that happen. It should not stop us from homesteading. It should not stop us from getting chickens or be fearful that we may lose an animal. We just got to put it in that perspective. We got to do what we need to do to protect that animal, secure it in best way we know how, and then understand things to happen. And it is sad and it is hard. For us, we run more a profitable egg business, and we're trying to increase as less at our sheep. So for us, we don't name our chickens, and we do see them as a business. And though we do care about them, And though we don't ever see any of them die, especially unnecessarily, we do realize getting older, they're going to be more susceptible to something happening to them as they get older naturally. But we don't want to see that unnecessarily. And with that, but most people that have homesteading, they don't do it as big as we've got it in our chickens. And we're about to order, or we've already ordered, coming in a few months, 400 more chickens. So we do have a larger scale.
That was 400.
We do have it a larger scale because we have a business, and that's what we're trying to do. And we know a lot of people try to make money off their homestead multiple different ways. There's all kinds of ways to make money off your homestead, and we do encourage all that.
Now, I do want to clear up one point as far as naming chickens. We do name our roosters. One of them currently is Cogburn, and that's from the movie Rooster Cogburn. And
all of them are Cogburn.
Well, except, the other one, I call him Cletus Earl. But
okay, I am not sure where that came from. That is the first time I have heard that. We had this gorgeous rooster, I don't know, 15 years ago. And we named him Cogburn from John Wayne Rooster Cogburn. So we named him Cogburn. And then, but after him, we had already had multiple roosters and had multiple rooster issues, which is a whole nother podcast. But we decided we did not want any more roosters after that. Well, then eventually we started getting more roosters.
You got to have a rooster.
Well, you don't have to have a rooster.
Well, no, you don't.
No, you don't. But it's nice to have them. However, we will talk about the seriousness of roosters at some other point.
You don't want too many roosters, that's for sure.
Well, no, you don't. But once again, on another podcast, we will talk about the seriousness of roosters on a different podcast. However, we decided we did not want roosters for a while, and we didn't have them. And then when we got a few roosters back, we decided, because we had 200 chickens, so we had about 3 roosters or something like that, and that's not too many at all for that large of a flock at all. But at that point, their name was Cogburn. So we decided all roosters will be named Cogburn. I did not know about Cletus Earl. Is that it?
Earl.
Okay, did not know about that. However, I call them all Cogburn.
Yeah.
That's just what they are. Who they
Roosters come and go.
Yeah. They'll defend their hens and be the one to basically take the life.
Dominance.
And well, they got that. But I'm saying if a hawk comes in, they're going to be the one that's going to run out there and take one for the team.
Love.
Take one for the team. So they do help in that way, but there are some.
They attack the foxes by jumping in their mouth, and the fox runs away with them.
That's almost true. But okay, we're going to move on. So those are some of the hardships of.
Let's get to some of that the pretty part of.
Let's get to the pretty part. Yeah, let's get to the pretty part. But just to let you know, those are some of the hardships. We experienced one of them this very week, and we also experienced the loss of a chicken. She was a beautiful Buff Orpington laying hen, and sometimes you have to actually put one down, and that's another hardship. You have to make the decision in the health of your animal. Do we put it down? Do we call the vet?
Yeah.
How are we going to dispose of those animals? These are things to think about. You want to talk about like the horse and how.
Yeah, I mean, we're on 38 acres, and we got some free horses, and found out there's no such thing as a free horse. They're expensive to feed. They are just expensive to maintain. They are expensive if you get thrown off and hurt when you get to go to the hospital. You can tell I'm not really into horses.
I can see that. I'm sitting there listening to him talk going, oh my goodness, what about the fun side of a horse?
Well, there's the fun side too if you like riding horses.
Our daughter did.
Yeah.
I rode some. She especially did. That was our son. Our oldest son, he liked horses too, and he liked to ride. He rode a lot with his grandfather and his friend, and that's how we got these horses. When my dad ended up getting out of his horses, closing his farm down, he asked if we wanted some of them, and so we did enjoy them.
We blessed some other people with free horses.
And they have enjoyed them and still have them.
Yeah.
And to this day, but the hardship of
The hardship of is when they get really old and unhealthy, and then they get sick and they lay down and don't get back up. You either have to call the vet out to come into that, or you have to do it yourself. And the disposal process is expensive. We got a local guy with a backhoe, and he has done some other work for us. He came down and dug a hole with his backhoe for $100. So sometimes it's even expensive to get out of horses. And that's another thing to consider if you have some acreage and you're going to do animals larger than chickens, sheep, goats, cows. If something happens, sometimes there's a disposal issue that you have to deal with. Something the size of a chicken can just go in a bag in the trash, but you can't really do that with a sheep or a goat or a cow because
you have to figure out what to do.
Yeah.
You have to figure out, do you want to call the vet, let them
Right.
take it off? Do you need to bury it? How are you going to dispose of it? These are things to think about in homesteading and in animals. But moving on to the
We still haven't got to the pretty part, have we?
Let's get to the pretty parts of
We're
homesteading.
kind of fixated on the
Let's
other
go
side.
to these are real realities.
Yeah.
I mean, these were things you and I didn't even think about when we just jumped right in. Most homesteaders jump right in 2 feet. They're grabbing the next thing. They're expanding the chickens, getting the next animal. They want it all. And there's a lot that they're not thinking about. And the reason I can say that so freely is I've seen it over and over and over on people that I follow and enjoy following, and also on people, and for our own personal experience. We have done that very thing. And honestly, we think about it more now, but we still do it to a degree. We still do it because we get very excited and we're ready for the next thing. And then we realize, wow, we got to shift that fence around before we can accommodate that.
Yeah. We've been on this property for 18 years now. Is it still 18 or is it more now?
No, 18,
Going
19,
on, yeah.
19 years.
And in the years we've been out here, we have actually developed a pet cemetery out here as well. Not just farm animals, but pets. So there's a designated space. We've got about 3 dogs over there, 2 small and 1 German Shepherd.
Yeah, that we've
got a
lost
cat.
over 18 years,
We still got one of the cats we got back in 2007. He's going on 19 years now. His brother died a few years ago, and he's buried back there in the pet cemetery. It's a little designated area, and that's different. Well, we didn't want the horses that close to the house because they're large.
No, well, that's a total separate thing.
Yeah.
That's our own
That's
little
more
personal.
beyond the backyard
Yeah,
fence.
that's personal right there. Those are our personal pets.
Yeah.
And for that, and people don't, we won't go there. We're trying to get to pretty.
Pretty.
Okay. I don't know what keeps holding us back from the pretty part because
You keep bringing stuff up.
oh my goodness, I'm thinking that's the other way around. However, we're moving to pretty. Pretty. What are some of the most beautiful things about homesteading?
Other than my wife.
Oh, well, thank you.
Wow, just nothing compares.
Well, okay, that's
You're
thank
blushing.
you.
Thank
I
you.
am blushing.
I can still make her blush.
So yes, 30. We're about
Actually,
to
I'm
have
starting to sweat a little bit.
I'm starting to have. We have our anniversary coming up next month.
Do
35 years.
35.
Oh my goodness,
Yeah.
35 years. Yes, it's been wonderful. Has its ups
Chrissy's
and
a
downs.
flight attendant, and she was flying with a young lady. It's like maybe her second year in, and she got to talking with her, and she said, "Yeah, I'm married." And the girl said, "Oh, really? How long have y'all been married?" She said, 30, whatever, 2 years at that point, I guess. And she said, 32 years? I didn't think people did that anymore.
I know that's pretty sad. So
yeah.
she actually wanted some advice, on that because she just hasn't seen the beauty of marriage, and maybe I don't know from her own experience of her family, her parents, maybe herself. I don't remember the story, but once again, there's the transition. the beauty of the homestead.
We're going to get there eventually.
So, but some of the things, you can talk about some of the things that you see are beautiful. One of the things I see beautiful on our property is the fun, and we're talking about the chickens and the hardship, but how wonderful. I tell you what, if you watch chickens, they are so much fun to watch. I enjoy watching our farm. I enjoy watching the chickens. They are hilarious. They are cute to watch. I wish I had videos on all of them. They're fun.
Especially if you're going with a small flock in a small yard, a back, subdivision yard, and you can really watch them interact with each other, just how ridiculous they really are. The pecking order is a real thing.
Yep.
You will have your top hen and your bottom of the rung hen, and they let each other know exactly where they stand.
Especially if you get a flock with multiple different chicken type breeds of chickens. They're so beautiful. And I just love those. And then you can get multiple colored eggs, from those really dark brown eggs all the way to multiple shades of brown, to the little like blue-green eggs, the more bluer eggs. So much. Those are so beautiful to see come in.
Yeah, you got magazines with all kinds of breeds that you can order.
Yeah.
We have a friend that's got a flock like that. And he's all the time asking, hey, do you want some of this kind? And I'm like, that chicken wouldn't last 5 minutes in our flock of chickens we got.
Well, we've had multiple, and I would love to have another flock of the multiple breeds that lay those, that look beautiful and lay the
different
beautiful
colors
eggs.
and different color eggs.
Our primary chicken is Rhode Island Red, because once again, we're in a business. We also love
our eggs are brown.
Yeah, and we love the Buff Orpington. Those are some of my second favorite. The Australorp, the Americanas. If I could order again, I would order those. A lot more Americanas, and a few others.
The next 400 we order?
Oh no, not those. I would like to have a side flock. Maybe just to do that. However, one of the beauties is to be able to walk out to your yard every day and collect eggs, and what's gone into that chicken's mouth. You know what you're feeding it. You're feeding it your scraps. They'll eat about everything out of your kitchen. They'll eat the eggshells back for calcium. It's really good.
Or you can feed them organic and have organic eggs if you want.
You can feed them fully organic, non-GMO, or other grains. They go out there and eat the bugs and the greens. They love all that. What's been in that chicken. So when you're feeding your family those eggs, what you're feeding your family. And that is a good feeling. That is a really, really good feeling to do that. Same way with, when we process these lambs, they will, we'll have our own lamb that we know. These are not lambs that we've put a bunch of antibiotics in. We haven't done all that. We haven't
been free range and rotational grazing.
Yeah. And that keeps them healthy.
Keeps parasites down.
It keeps their parasites down, keeps them a lot more healthier. Our goal is to lamb in the summer, so there's not a lot of in barn, where we don't have to keep them all in barn, which can breed a lot more bacteria and things like that. Wet conditions, a lot more work in the winter. We don't want that. We want them to lamb in May, April, May, June. And that gets them right on pasture right away, eating what's right.
And it's easy to control that by keeping your ram away from the ewes.
Yeah. That's how you control that for sure. Or you just borrow or rent a ram from somebody during the mating season.
That might be a good business.
That you want. Rent a ram.
See that on the side of a van driving down the interstate.
Sorry.
That's twice I've made you laugh today. Usually she looks at me and just gives me this look like, save it for the kids is what she used to say, but they've all moved out now, so she gets it off.
Oh my goodness, yeah. When he would tell the most corny things, and I would look at him and go, save it for the kids.
I've never once done corny. Funny.
So now.
Irony. Irony is wasted on Christy. She doesn't get irony. She just looks at me like, you got to stop.
Yes, I do. Next week, I may not laugh this hard. He may actually irritate me with some things. But let's go back. Sis, what are some of the things that you think are that you would say is really, really beautiful, really nice on the property that you enjoy?
Well, on our property, the change of seasons. I mean, even now right now it's wintertime and all the leaves are down, but you look out through the trees behind the house and you can actually see beyond them at this point. And it's like, oh, wow, I forgot that was over there. It's like, And even just the browns and grays of the tree trunks and limbs, and seeing like all the little branches going out, spreading out that you usually can't see because of the leaves. You got the change of the seasons in the fall, the colors of the leaves changing, and that varies from year to year as to how fast or slow that happens. You got the leaves budding out in the springtime, which is really cool because the red buds start first. Mm-hmm. That's the kind of tree. We're into trees. You'll see them on the interstate as you drive sometimes with the highway, and it's like, oh, what's that red? Oh, that's a red bud. Oh, okay. That's what they call it. Hey, a red bud tree. And of course, you got the summertime when you get to cut grass all the time. That's fun. Yeah. But you've also got, the flower beds and the gardens. If you do a row garden in the ground, it's usually, you can add some color and some flowers. You put some sunflowers in a row, something like that, or just wildflowers in an area. Row gardens are typically just for production, but if you do something like a raised bed garden or a bucket container garden, you can arrange those to where they're pretty, decorative. You usually do that intentionally because you don't want a row garden in your backyard in a subdivision. You want something prettier because it's your backyard.
And also the other benefit of adding flowers to your garden, wherever it be, if it be in the in-ground row or in a raised bed or any of that, is to help with bugs.
Yeah.
Bugs, there's certain flowers that run bugs off from your garden, and that not only makes it beautiful, but it makes it very beneficial.
Yeah, it's called companion planting. Mm-hmm. So you'll plant certain flowers in there among the vegetables.
Yeah, and actually we're going to do a podcast on companion planting, and which we need to be thinking about, pretty much right now. Yeah. So we may actually do that one next week, is companion planting, because we should have already done a podcast on gardening. Well, I know we talked about it last week. Was that last week? We talked about it, but we need to do that next week, actually, because this is the time to really plan out your garden now.
Seeding some stuff out.
So if you haven't started planting and you want to do a raised bed, or you want to do some in-ground, or like Les said, some bucket garden where you just take some buckets and grow stuff, this is a time to kind of plan that out, when to seed out, when not to seed out, what to plant with it, like you said.
Not that I think buckets are pretty, but you can have other containers.
But you can buy other pretty containers if you want to invest in that. That's fine. If you don't, a lot of times, just a side note, a lot of times some places like delis, bakeries,
for buckets,
things like that, restaurants, they will get big giant buckets of pickles and other things, and they'll give them to you. They'll give them to you for free. Yeah. So all you're having to do from there is get your soil and then planting.
Well, and then there again, if you have chickens and you have a chicken coop, you have chicken poop, which is actually fertilizer.
Oh, yeah.
That you can work into that.
You can work into that. That's another thing. Even if you don't have a farm, you can have rabbits. Rabbit poo. We have 2 rabbits. That's all we have. And we have so much rabbit poo. Woo!
They can take a 50-pound bag of rabbit feed and turn it into 100 pounds of poop. I don't know how they do it, but it's just like...
Oh, I think it's more than that. It's terrible. It's amazing insane what they can do. And so that will be going into our garden. One thing about rabbits... And that can go
straight in the garden.
That's it. I was about to say that. Yeah. It can go straight in the garden. So learning about composting poo, some of it's called hot, and you need to let it condition. What do you call it?
For a year.
For a year. Ferment. Thank you. Ferment for 6 months, maybe a year, before it can go into the garden, because you don't want to burn up your plants or kill your plants. But rabbit poo can go straight in the garden. You can even use rabbit urine, but you want to dilute that, but you can use that straight in the garden too.
And they're low maintenance too. Mm-hmm. I mean, not that you want to keep them caged up all the time, but they live in rabbit hutches.
Yeah.
And a container underneath that hutch collects the poop. Mm-hmm. And all you got to do is go utilize it.
Yeah. Another thing is we used to have worms. If you have a place for worms.
We used to have worm beds.
I'm sorry.
Okay, I made her laugh. That's 3 times. I made her laugh 3 times.
Okay. We used to have worm beds.
Lord have mercy.
All right, let me get myself
rotational grazing to keep parasites down. We did not have worms.
We used to have, okay, I'm going to get myself together. We used to have worm beds, and
we may edit this out. You may miss this. We may leave it in.
We just leave it in. It's organically done. We used to have worm beds, and it is, those are very easy. You can keep those inside an apartment. You can keep that, and then you have
your spouse may think you're insane, but
that's very common. You just keep a box. It's just a box with worms, and then
you can buy an entire setup and they'll ship the worms to you. All you have to do is throw your scraps in it.
Yeah, you throw your scraps. They love your scraps. They're in low maintenance.
Keep them from drying out.
Once after every 3 months or so, the soil is ready to go into
vermiculture. Right.
Vermiculture, yeah. It's ready to go into the to your garden or into your plant. You can even put them in your house plants. You can put that soil on top into your house plants. It's like a type of it's a compost. It is, and it'll fertilize your plants.
And like Chrissy said, we used to have worm beds. If it gets to be much of a hassle, you can just give it to your friends like we did.
That's what we did. We just gave them to our friends. They really appreciated it. It's just because I didn't have the setup. The
timing.
Well, because I do work.
Yeah.
My goal is to eventually come back home, but I do work. So once again, that's why I felt like very qualified to answer that question earlier, because it is hard. I can't do as much as I want to do. And I'm going to be honest, even working, I still overdo, and things get slack, and I have to put the order on what
she means is she leaves town and I slack.
No,
it's really hard to keep up with all this.
Has to keep up. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. He does have to take it all. He works and has to come home. We do have
it. It is large scale out here on some things.
We also are always having projects. Right now, we just finished to set up some fencing projects to continue to rotate out our sheep into new paddocks. We also are building a new chicken coop that we need to build for the 400 chicks that will be coming in. That's a rotational chicken coop. We call those eggmobiles. We got that from the Joe Soliton style and eggmobile. So we call ours eggmobiles. So Les is going to be building one of those. That's a big deal on the side.
That will be a upcoming video series.
Yes. Yeah. We'll put that one out on YouTube. That one will come out. We don't, and right now we don't have a YouTube channel, but we will start one, and we'll link that below when we do. But just to bring this a little more to a close.
Did we ever get the beauty part of it?
Well, we did talk about some of the beauty part, and some of the other beauty part is the garden. There's something so fun to bring in. You put one squash seed or zucchini seed in the ground, and the multiple squash and zucchini you get out of that. And if it's done organically, you feel good when you feed your family.
And if you miss one, they get huge, and it just turns into chicken food because they're kind of seedy and tough when they're that big. But we've had them that were a couple of feet long one time because you went out of town. I was covered up doing other stuff and didn't get to the garden. And we had these massive zucchinis.
Yeah, I showed that back on my Instagram, but it's a good ways back. It's a good ways back on my Instagram, and I showed that. However, but it is, you feel good. You feel good about what you feed your family. It can be fun. It's very fun to work in the garden. I mean, the Bible talks about being in the garden and tilling the soil and getting your hands into that and the nurturing that does. There's so much holistic health by just getting out in the sun, getting the vitamin D.
Here's another pretty part.
Is
baby goats, baby chicks, and puppies. Are so cute.
They are so cute. They are so cute. We do have a pregnant, our Great Pyrenees. She's pregnant right now, due in just a couple of weeks. And I don't think you can get cuter than a little 6-week-old Pyrenees puppy. Oh my goodness, they're adorable.
When their eyes open up and they start realizing, I'm not here alone.
Yeah, they're probably
actually playing with each other.
About 2 weeks, 3 weeks at that. But all of a sudden, they're maybe about 4 weeks old, and you hear this little.
Yeah.
And they're trying to play with each other.
And then you can't keep them in the puppy box if you tried.
Oh, they're so adorable. But yeah, that'll happen. Everything it gets you out in the sun more. I was saying a minute ago, that is very, very healthy. You can eat, even if you don't fertilize everything organically or with nutrients, organic nutrients, which I do recommend.
Yeah.
It's still better than what you're going to get at the store.
Oh yeah.
Whatever you do, it's still better. Do you know it's not in a hot house? It is grown in season. You're growing it there. You've chosen what to grow, which is a benefit. Choose what you're going to eat for sure. And
grow what you eat.
And
eat
then
what
you can
grow.
grow flowers. You can grow sunflowers, feed the bees, the birds, all of that. You see that. You use your chicken poo.
We've got
you
beehives.
feed your vegetables back to the chickens. Yeah, we do. We have beehives. I love watching the bees.
We've got so much honey. It's
I
crazy.
love getting out on outside and seeing a bee. You know what? Before we had beehives and I saw a bee, I'd be like, a bee. But now that we have beehives, I'm over there like, oh, those are our bees.
Yeah.
Oh, they're so sweet. I love hearing them, and you can be out there and hear them all in the
Bee out
springtime, just making all their bee sounds. And there's tons of them close by and
Well,
around.
you hear them in the fruit trees.
And you
the
hear
other
them
trees,
and you hear them in the dandelions and different things of clover. And that doesn't scare me. It used to. Now a wasp, I cannot stand. That's
a
not,
different
but that's in city and in country. Hey, those things are out there. But yeah, there's a lot of beauty to homesteading.
Yeah.
A lot of beautiful things. We do enjoy it. And even if your homesteading is from the indoors only, by just bringing back to the home, there's beauty in growing the herbs in the windowsill. You just cut your own fresh herbs for your own meal. You've opened up a canned jar of tomatoes that you put in your soup. You canned because you just had a couple of plants on your patio, or you went to the farmer's market and bought local and then canned. So it's just something so beautiful bringing that homemade bread out of the oven and then making things from there. So yeah, that's some of the beauty of it. There's some of the hardships of it. We hope you learned a lot today. We're so thankful.
Hope you had a good time too.
Yeah, we're thankful you're with us. We would appreciate if you just take just a moment and subscribe. Give us a 5-star rating. Don't forget to share this with your friends and family. This will really help our podcast. We really appreciate it. And another thing, we would like it if you would go on our Instagram and follow us there. But we'd like for you to let us know you follow us so we can, if you've got a farm or an Instagram that you would like to share with us, do that and let us know. Go into the comments or go in and DM us and let us know that that you're there, and we can go into your Instagram and see what you have. And don't forget to give us a question. We do appreciate that. It helps us think, and it can help others also.
All right, we want to thank everybody for being with us. We really do appreciate all of our listeners, and thank you for being with us again this week. We want to close out with the Bible verse. This is from the Tree of Life version. It says, "Taste and see how good Adonai is. Blessed is the one who takes refuge in him." And that was Psalm 34, verse 9. So again, thanks everybody for listening, and have a good week.